Okay, let me start off by saying sorry for this. I woke up this morning, did not want to put on actual clothes. So it's been a while since I've done a review. Obviously, I've seen a lot of movies in between the last one I did and the one I'm about to talk to, The Hobbit. But I just didn't have the time, didn't have the people to do one of them. I had a great one for Dark Knight Rises, but that's besides the point. Thursday night, I went to see The Hobbit at midnight. I did the high frame rate version, but we'll get back to that. We'll get back to that at the end. The movie, clocking in at just about 2 hours and 50 minutes, was actually really good. The Hobbit was always my favorite out of the Lord of the Rings books. I never really liked the other ones as much as I liked The Hobbit. There was just something about it. A lot of people are complaining about the movie, saying it dragged out and it strayed away from the fun of Tolkien's original novel. And it just seems like they have not seen the same movie that I saw. The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey was a really fun movie. It was funny, it was lighthearted, but serious when it needed to be. And it handled its pacing really well, especially for being the first 7 chapters of The Hobbit. It handled it really well. The soundtrack was amazing. The directing was fantastic. The acting was really good. Silly at times, but that's part of everything, you know? Completely forgot what I was going to say. It's been too long, you gotta bear with me here. The soundtrack, we'll start with, was amazing. Something that threw me off, though, was there were 3 musical numbers in this movie. And it wasn't like prancing around, lights flashing, fantastic musical number, but it was like the dwarfs singing the Lonely Mountain Song, I think is what it's called. When they were cleaning up, when they just got done eating for the first time and they were cleaning up, they were singing a song, and they sung a song about, I can't remember what else. But there are three musical numbers in there, and it was really strange that that happened. But they're all really good. The soundtrack provided the right feel for the movie. The acting was about on par with all the other Lord of the Rings movies, including the fact that it brought in other characters from the Lord of the Rings movies. That's another complaint people has, is it seeped in elements from Lord of the Rings instead of just being straight up Hobbit. But it was nice to see all the old actors back, except for they brought Elijah Wood back for Frodo, which is understandable, but since it's supposed to be a prequel, and at this point Elijah Wood is who knows how old, they had to make him digitally younger. So they, kind of like the young Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy, they manipulated him to make him look younger, to get rid of his wrinkles and all that good stuff. But still, good to see him back. The whole thing was just fantastic. If you liked the Lord of the Rings movies, if you liked The Hobbit, you definitely need to check it out. It was really good. Now, I saw it in the high frame rate 3D, which was just regular Real D, not IMAX, but the high frame rate, I won't get into the technicalities of it, but it's shot at double the normal frame rate for a film standard. So, at times, it looked a little choppy. Like, when things were going too fast, it looked choppy. But the dramatic wide shots looked amazing. People are complaining it looks too much like a soap opera, that it looks too much like a nature documentary, that it takes away from it because you know the movie's fake, but it looks real kind of thing. It's ridiculous. People are complaining about the dumbest things. It did look like a soap opera or a documentary, but I don't see that as a bad thing. For the wide shots and the nature shots, it's great. You get to see what it actually looks like. Being shot at a higher frame rate, it lets in more light, basically. So everything's more vivid. Sometimes people had a kind of plasticky feel to them, but ultimately, though, I think if they tweak it right, it can be done really well. In order to prove a point about how little frame rate matters, though, I've recorded this video at the industry standard of 24 frames per second, as opposed to my usual 30 frames per second. If you've caught on to the fact that I did that before I mentioned it just now, and this is just clarification for you, chances are you should probably see The Hobbit at 48 frames per second at one point. Not necessarily the first time, but at one point you should see it in 48 frames per second just to see the difference. If you notice absolutely no difference, stick with the regular IMAX 3D or the regular 2D shot or projected at 24 frames per second. The 3D is going to be a big plus for IMAX. Well, it was a big plus for Realty as well, but it's a plus because the film was shot in 3D, and not to mention it was also practical. The sets, they tried to make them as practical as possible. Like Smaug's lair just had all the gold in it, and they actually got gold, basically. They got everybody's gold-plated paint and all this stuff from New Zealand. They just brought it all together, and it's just a shit ton of gold-plated shit. But it's all shot practically, so the 3D adds to it, kind of like with Prometheus. Prometheus was shot in 3D, and it was the best 3D I've ever seen. I don't care what anybody says, oh, Avatar's 3D was so good. No. Prometheus had some of the best 3D I've ever seen. All in all, though, The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey was definitely worth seeing. I'm more than willing to watch it again, and I'm probably going to watch it again. But ultimately, I'm excited for the release of the next one, which I believe is There and Back Again. And then the third one's going to be Desolation of Smaug. Point is, though, I'm looking forward to it, and thank you for watching.